Welcome, everyone. Will start shortly. We're right on time for the decommissioning session. and big note of thanks to Mike Petricelli from Technical Safety BC, who's joining us to answer questions as we go through this session. So just give us a minute for the last minute registrants and we'll move right into it. Okay, Mike, I don't see any more popping in, so I'm just going to welcome everyone. So this is the technical session. It's not that complicated, but it is pretty dynamic if it's not done effectively and properly about decommissioning gas appliances. So we're now starting to get a lot of conversions. If you're in townhouses or bare land stratas or apartment buildings where you have heat pumps being installed, you're converting from furnaces to heat pumps that are solely electric or hot water systems. What happens after the gas is disconnected and decommissioned is a really important issue. Mike Patricelli from Technical Safety BC is here to answer questions as we go through it. I'm just going to lump right through and then we'll get right into the basic outlines. Associa Management has sponsored this event today, so thanks for them. These events get posted. This seminar will get posted, or webinar, to our YouTube channel. So you can go back and visit it, share it, pass it around with as many people as you like. If you have any questions as we go along, use the Q&A. It will come directly to us. We'll be able to answer your questions. Daryl, is the chat active or disabled, or where are we at?
Chat's disabled. It's the Q&A,
okay.
I think.
Okay, so we're using the Q&A. Whatever works for you, please feel free to go ahead and we'll follow your questions as we progress through. Just a little privacy when you're asking questions. Just don't specify your strata corporation names, anything that can identify your community or people. These are all intended to provide you with overview information. And we always recommend you speak with the regulators if you have any additional questions as we go along. So here's the definition of decommissioning, and this was provided to us from Technical Safety BC. And it is the disconnecting and capping a gas line is regulated alteration work and requires a gas fitter and a permit. So it's not just the installation of a heat pump. If you are disconnecting a gas fireplace, for example, or if you are disconnecting a furnace in your townhouse and a heat pump is going to enable your heating and cooling. There are, and we have seen some serious consequences of improper situations where decommissioning was not done correctly. There are also issues that arise from venting, how the systems are sealed. And then don't forget, if you're in a multifamily building and you're converting your gas fireplace to electric, which is becoming much more popular now, your gas line is just one of the entire building. They are all interconnected. They don't have localized shutoffs or locations in many situations. So it's even more important that the decommissioning is conducted properly as you go through it. Common examples for decommissioning: gas fireplaces in your units or in common areas. We have lobbies with gas fireplaces in many buildings and communities. Those are being decommissioned to install electric. Again, permitting for installation, for removal. Gas stoves or ovens for cooking utilities. And this includes things like your clubhouses or your common areas. Hot water tanks, we're seeing the removal of hot water tanks that are gas fired, and then the installation of an on-demand system that may be electric, so that the gas is no longer served for the building or to the unit. Furnaces and boilers, older buildings often have boilers with heat exchangers, gas fired. We now have conversion for furnaces and boilers that are heat pumps. So there's another system. And then the last one, which is really quite becoming quite common, so that we get cooling into the common areas of buildings, are the makeup air systems. Most of them are gas fired for winter heat. It prevents freezing of components and ensures common areas maintain a stable temperature. They have no cooling though, so the trend now is to convert to makeup air systems that are heat pumps. So those are is the most common that we come across. Before you do this conversion, before you get down the road of these types of installations and decommission, we do recommend that you look at your electric planning report. Does your community have sufficient capacity of power, either within your home or within the collective property, to meet all the conversion demands? Heat pumps take a substantially greater amount of power than a forced air gas furnace in townhouse complexes, which is a really common example. The community may not have anticipated or been designed in anticipation for this to take place. Is it possible that you don't have enough capacity? You need permits for installations and conversions. That if you're the Strata Corporation and somebody is doing a conversion and an installation and a conversion, do you have permits? And then the last thing is, have you reviewed your strata bylaws to determine whether the conversion requirements and decommissioning are actually part of your bylaws? I've been looking at bylaws. Most of the bylaws that I have come across, none of them acknowledge the decommissioning requirements. So it's probably a good time now. Think about getting the decommissioning requirements that are within these within your bylaws. So now, Michael, I'm going to just pop right to you with questions. That's kind
Yeah,
of
of
the
course.
whole, that's the landscape of this, really. It's not much more complicated than that, but the consequences of not doing this are complicated. So if your community completes a full conversion from gas to electric, can they decommission their gas meter service? That's the first real question.
Yeah, so of course, if they're taking out all of their gas-fired appliances and they are putting in electric, then yeah, they are able to decommission their gas meter and service. At that point, they're obviously, if they're taking things out, there's going to be sort of a lead or lag time between the meter being pulled and stuff like that. Everything's got to be capped off by a gas contractor and under the appropriate permit. Now, just something to note here, because in one of your earlier slides, we talked about sometimes we'd be decommissioning things in like say in a suite,
Right.
or in the in a clubhouse or in a common area. So with those sort of things there, it's really important to know that when your contractor comes in, they may be, if they're doing it in a suite, generally speaking, that is going to be like a residential multifamily permit that they'd be pulling for that, or just a residential permit, but usually your contractor will know the difference. If it's anything in a common area, which includes mechanical rooms, yeah, community rooms, things like that, then now it's got to be a commercial installation permit. So we do draw a line on that. So it's good to be aware of that as well, what your gas contractor is pulling. Generally speaking, if the gas contractor pulls the wrong class of permit, we'll call them and speak with them about that. But it is just nice to know that there is that difference there.
And TSBC is across the province, correct? For permits, licensing, etc., for the installation and conversions.
Well, yeah, so there are a couple of municipalities who do look after their own inspections for gas. Generally speaking, what draws that line is it's if they're doing single family, sometimes I've seen in Maple Ridge, they will deal with like, say, a townhouse complex where you have two buildings attached to each other and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, so there can be instances where the municipality, Kelowna does the same thing, Richmond, off the top of my head, and I think one of the North Van, I think it's city or district in North Van. You can actually go on our website and look up municipal inspections or municipal jurisdictions, and they'll give you a better idea of that too. As well, I know a lot of the places, most of the places that do their own municipal electrical inspections, they'd be doing all the permitting for the any electrical stuff that's getting added to the system as well. So it's good to know that kind of dividing line on who would be coming by through that. But again, I believe our system's designed so that if they put in, if they're pulling a permit and checking the right boxes, it will tell the gas contractor whether or not it is under municipal jurisdiction. But it's just good to be informed about that as well.
So if a gas fireplace in a multifamily building is converted to electric, and there is a shutoff for the gas. Is that sufficient for decommissioning to verify that the shutoff is secure, or because those gas lines are serial, they're interconnected with all the lines throughout the building?
Yeah, so with that there, the gas shut off, just having the gas shut off is not sufficient. They do have to cap the line as well, right? Because if through somehow, that valve gets opened, or if over years and years that valve is to fail, then yes, you could have a potentially really hazardous situation. So the valve does have to be capped off as well.
So I think this is a logical question in sequence. So how do you cap the valve off without shutting the building gas off?
So if you got the valve there, you would shut the valve off. And then they can buy caps to put on the end of it there.
Right.
Sometimes you'll run into situations where it's like a whole riser that
Yep.
is that needs to be shut down in order to do that. Then in which case if it's a single unit, gas contractor would come through, shut off the gas to that riser, or potentially I've seen in some, now it's not code compliant, but there are situations where I have seen when I used to be on the tools and stuff like that where you actually have to shut down the whole building in order to do it. But
Right.
they've tried to move away from that, and with the new iterations of the code and stuff like that, they're very specific about how close a readily accessible shutoff valve has to be to an appliance. So
Really, our buildings between 1975 though and 95 with scads of gas fireplaces without localized shutoffs, right? So that's one of the challenges I think that everybody's facing to basically ensure that this is being done correct. That's it really is a safety issue for the public.
yeah, for sure, right? And I mean, at the time that's disconnected, if there isn't a riser shut off or something like that there, the contractor, it might be a good idea. That's a nice thing about Strata's becoming aware of what's going on in their building and really knowing what's going on in their suites and stuff like that, because they may say, oh, you got to shut our whole building down to do this. Okay, well, hey, you got it down, put in a valve for that riser, right? Because things do have happened in the past where people will go in, and we actually had one slightly different where the contractor was kind of monkeying around in a suite there, and actually loosened something up the riser, and then it caused a problem as well, right? So we have had an information bulletin come out about that, and there's a whole incident report on what happened with that, right? But it is kind of hard when you have things where that buildings from the 1970s that were inspected to a different code and stuff like that. So yeah, these things happen.
Yeah, no, it's just a little bit of a time now with all these conversions to make our buildings safe.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the questions that's popped in is who did they get a permit from? So it depends on which jurisdiction is going to apply, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So what'll happen is the strata themselves will not obtain that permit. What they'll do is they'll obtain the services of a licensed gas contractor who is able to pull permits for these things.
Right. Or the homeowner who's having it done to their unit.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Either or, right. And it's the same permit to install and decommission, or two separate permits?
So if they're installing say they're pulling out the fireplace and putting a new one in, it would be a gas installation permit, but they would list specific appliances on there. So if they're redoing a fireplace or something like that, your contractor would list, okay, yeah, I'm doing one fireplace and a range if they're doing, just for example of like your classic Reno there. However, if it's just a decommission, then they're required to pull just a piping only permit because it's just a modification of the gas system.
Right. Okay. Pauline, you've got a question about your electrical report done, but you can't understand any of it for your EPR. Please join us next week for next week's session. You can email us in the short time too. There are lots of issues coming up with electric planning reports. So please join us next week. I think you'll get a lot of your answers then as we go forward. What are some of the real life safety risks that are posed here when we're dealing with people that are not properly decommissioning?
So we've seen, we had one instance there that I'm immediately aware of where someone came through and pulled out a gas water heater. They didn't cap the line correctly. They just relied on the shutoff there. Later on, that shutoff actually got bumped open, and there was an explosion due to that. Other instances would be if you have, appliances that are running on a common vent. Um, and I've seen appliances removed before. They haven't capped the vent off, and then next thing you know, you've got monoxide coming out into the occupied space and stuff like that. So yeah, generally fire, explosion, and monoxide are like the biggest risks when we're removing things, decommissioning things, and things aren't getting capped off and decommissioned properly.
In relation to this, and is also gas fireplaces. So, for cost savings and to reduce heat loading, strata corporations are turning off the gas to their gas fireplaces for their pilots in the summer, especially for older buildings where they just run continuously.
Okay.
Off the top of your head, the restart should require, I would assume, an inspection or servicing.
Yeah, so with gas fireplaces and most piloted gas appliances, we always recommend that anything's getting, inspected and serviced annually. A homeowner is able to relight their own pilots there. There are instructions. Every piece of equipment comes with an instruction on how to relight their pilot there. But but it is definitely a recommendation that you're having these appliances checked and serviced annually, right? Because if something's changed between point A and point B, yeah, you're going to want to make sure that that's all good at the beginning of every season, right? So yes.
So Joanne has a great question with respect to their heat exchange system on their roof
Okay.
that they probably need to replace by 2030. And you can answer this, and I can answer this too, because I've just gone through this. The gas heats the common areas, everything else is electric. So is a heat pump feasible? Is it too expensive? What's the conversion going to look like? So it would start with the decommissioning of the gas if they remove it, I'm going to assume. With if the rest of the building system, so I've seen this on a building recently where the heat pump was the old makeup air unit was removed for the heat exchange system, and the gas line itself had corroded badly. So even removing it and decommissioning it, I'm going to have to assume that the gas line itself, to the point where it's safe, is going to have to be removed and capped.
Yeah, that's correct, right? So if you've got an old, 30, 40-year-old or older gas line, that, the paint's flaked off, it's all rotten and it's starting to fall apart and stuff like that, that would be removed to the point where it's safe, right? I mean, that's up to your gas contractor to do their due diligence with these sort of things. It's also good to note that, if they are removing it and putting in heat pumps and stuff like that, sometimes there'll be like an emergency heat thing that setting where the things still do require gas. I know up here in the Okanagan, for example, where I'm working out of here, we'll see it where, yes, they will have a heat pump, but there will be a backup gas system on there as well. So in which case, if there is some sort of gas, then yeah, they'd have to do it under a full installation permit listing the appliance. And then again, if like she's asking about too expensive or it can't be done, I mean, if the
Right.
power is not there, and it's prohibitive and you got to go with gas, then, that's, so you kind of got to do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, and she's in a 36 unit, 20-year-old building. So, Joanne, I'm going to assume your building is wood frame construction. So, I've just been through two of these, and installing heat pumps is feasible. And Mike's totally right. The ones we've recently installed have a threshold of -5. Below -5, the gas kicks in to support the heating system. So we're not overworking the heat pumps. But what the most expense really was involved with the retrofit of the structure of the building, because the wood frame buildings aren't designed for the same weight load and the demands that the original makeup air units were. So, reach out and we can give you some coaching on that too, as to the kind of questions that you're going to have to basically put through in a process. The price of heat pumps is coming down, but heat pumps that are large enough to manage the systems on makeup air units they are more costly. It does cost more, but they also provide cooling in the summer, which is pretty important. So that's another discussion on makeup air units, but it's a really good question because I think a lot of people are shying away from this just because of expense. But lots of experiments and lots of newer buildings are being done. Any other thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, so actually just while we're talking about this here, I'm looking at the Q&A session here, and I see Ken rather is asking if there's legislation driving this and stuff like that. So provincially at this point, no, I haven't seen much of that. Municipally, like we've seen Vancouver that's trying to move away from gas. I believe Nanaimo is going the same way. So municipally, they're ultimately when they're doing building permits and stuff like that, they're trying to push. They really want it to go more towards electrical. And then not so much legislation, but that's where all the incentives seem to be these days, especially in residential. They're providing rebates and stuff like that to try and incentivize electric or dual fuel systems.
Exactly. And BC Hydro and Clean BC are offering rebates, financing options to convert. Just for comfort alone, though, where people are just starting to choose electric fireplaces over gas fireplaces and units, they reduce vastly the maintenance requirements. But again, it's not being legislated at this point that you have to do this. So it's a choice of communities as we're going forward. However, I wouldn't be surprised to see in the next 5 years, we see legislation that is going to drive some of these conversions or upgrades to be expected. How about gas supply lines, copper? Is there a life expectancy for a line?
If it's installed correctly, no, it should last quite a while indoors. Sometimes you'll get the odd situation there where because copper and steel are dissimilar metals, and you do have gas flowing through there, you can get electrolysis, which will degrade that gas line. But in a properly installed installation, copper doesn't really have a shelf life there. If it was installed and kinked and a gas contractor sees that, they may say, hey, we're going to remove this. But yeah, no, copper, generally speaking, does not expire or go bad.
Yeah, it's not a skies falling kind of situation. For the most part across province, these systems perform incredibly well. So it's the installation or conversion that are done improperly that tend to raise issues for the clients.
Yeah, same goes for black iron, right? If they haven't painted it and it's been sitting out the elements for years and years, I mean, it's going to rot, it's going to fall apart. But again, if it's been properly painted, it should last quite a while there. And I know a lot of buildings as well will have a preventative maintenance schedule where they will get a contractor in to go over the stuff there. So if they are noting those sort of things, the gas line's really rotten and it's starting to pit and not look good there, then that's something as well to be aware of. That is, if you have failing gas lines or vent lines for that matter of fact, and it's being noted, then that should be a fairly high priority item to look after, right? Because if that line fails and starts, whether it be dumping gas, or I've seen in situations where there was an improperly installed vent on a furnace there that was rotting and falling apart there, it can become hazardous very quickly.
Okay, super. Any
I
more
also
questions?
I see one up here about would a gas fitter cap the vent at the same time as capping the line, or would that be a separate trade? So yeah, gas fitters can do that as well. It depends kind of on how the appliances are interconnected. So if you have a fireplace, for example, and they are able to verify that it is a um, single fireplace. A lot of these fireplaces are direct vent, or just have a single vent running out for it there. Yeah, there's not as much hazard in say not capping it, but what's going to happen is you're going to stack out all your heat, and you're gonna kind of lose it through the building, like through just the hot air basically rising from the building there. So they should be capped off. Again, where we see the big hazard with vents is if they're interconnected, which has been known to happen there. Then all of a sudden, if it's not capped off, if somebody say on a floor below is running a piece of equipment, or even above, and you get a negative situation in the building where all of a sudden it's drawing air back down. That's where we see the big hazards, right, with products of combustion entering the occupied space.
One more then. Gas runs outside the unit. It's a copper line. Should it be painted or protected in some way? Well, my next question is, does it meet code?
Yeah, so if it's outside the unit, on the exterior of the building, generally speaking, we do not require copper to be painted. It because it's a non-ferrous metal, it doesn't rust and degrade the same way. It'll tarnish and whatnot there, but it definitely doesn't. Like we used to allow copper, and the right type of copper to actually be buried in the ground, which is a big a very corrosive environment, right? But as long as it's the right style or wrapped, it can go in the ground. So yeah, I don't, it doesn't really need to be painted.
Okay. Um, that's super.
I see another one here with turning off. So they've turned off the gas pilot light. I have no intention of ever using it again. Would they still need an inspection? No, because you're just shutting the equipment off.
Yeah.
People do that all the time. It's one of those things that, if it's been shut off, and valved off, it's a good idea to valve it off too, just because. But essentially, that system's now isolated in its own way there, and now doesn't need, you can leave it without an inspection. Where it would be good to note is if, say, you sell or you decide to use that, that fireplace again, stuff like that. Then it's a good idea to get, a gas contractor through. You never know if something's moved into that fireplace or anything like that. So then you would want to get a gas contractor to inspect it. That doesn't need to be done, does not need to be done under a permit because it is service work, right? It's also good to note too that a lot of fireplaces out there that are gas fired, a lot of them, like with a pilot light, they have a self-generating pilot. A good chunk of the older ones do anyways. So if it's a situation where, hey, the power goes out or for an extended amount of time, people may want to use that in order to have a secondary source of heat to at least get some sort of heat in their place. So yeah, just sorry, a little tidbit for you.
Yeah, no, it's definitely helpful when we're on power outages. So when you have a gas fireplace on a direct vent fireplace and you're replacing it with a similar BTU of a gas fireplace, other than permit for this is going to be an installation permit basically for a new gas-fired unit, correct?
Exactly. I mean, the contractor is going to go through, confirm that the venting materials that are being used are approved for that appliance there. So what happens is when you get a fireplace, and if say you're looking to buy a fireplace there, consult with your gas contractor. They'll generally open up the installation manual. It'll give you a list of approved venting materials to be used. Some people will come in and say, "Oh yeah, I think this is a direct vent fireplace. Buy one," and then find out that in fact it's just a single vent and it's drawing from the room. Some of the older fireplaces went that way. It used to work that way. So, yeah, it's always good if you don't know, definitely to consult. You're gonna have a gas contractor involved for that replacement, so definitely consult them and make sure that what you have in there is acceptable.
Sounds good. Excellent. I think we've covered them all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
We popped up the website, the links. So there is, if you just put decommissioning requirements for gas appliances in the Technical Safety BC website, it will pull up just a scat of information plus the decommissioning guide. If you want some information around bylaws for installation of heat pumps, you can go to our website. And BC Housing also has a very good heat pump installation technical bulletin that we recommend. It talks about all of the different installation requirements. Most importantly, the exterior implication for your buildings, penetration of the building envelope, seismic, safety, drainage, condensation, etc. So take an opportunity to do that if you get a chance. And I think there we are.
Actually, hey, Tony, we got two more questions here that have just kind of popped
Let's
in
do
as
them.
I'm watching here. So first of all, someone missed the answer on should our strata bylaws require evidence of proper decommissioning? I would say yes. I think that is a great way to cover yourself so that you know if somebody within within your strata is working on those things there, that could get a little more tough for bare land stratas, detached stratas, and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, but generally speaking, for a lot of these things, if they are going into those common walls to mess around with things like that, then like 100% you should be aware of that. But I think it is a good thing to put into your bylaws as well that, hey, you know what? We need evidence of a permit. We need evidence that of a passed or closed permit because we don't inspect 100% of everything that's out there. So what'll happen is sometimes we will, if we don't look at it, our gas fitters submit a declaration. We accept their work under that declaration. They will get a permit status notification. So, either way, they will be getting something that says that the permit has been closed, whether it be a certificate of inspection because an inspection was done on it, or a permit closure notification, right? And if they're not providing either of those things, it's kind of time to start asking some questions. Um, and then second of all, so requirement for replacement with similar BTU due to designer changes and increased efficiency. Again, that's going to be the same sort of thing. I mean, if you're increasing efficiency on these things, a lot of those units, what they do, they'll have a fan on them rather than just, just heat. Oh, sorry, just heat leaving the, basically going up through your thermostat. So there may be some requirements to install electrical and stuff like that for that. And some of those, again, the increased efficiency ones, they're going from, just a single vent appliance to a direct vent appliance. So there could be situations where the venting system that is installed within the building is insufficient and has to be changed.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, there we go.
No, there we go. There we go. Well, that's great. Thanks everyone for joining. Again, we'll post this so you can go back and refresh. Use the links to source out the other information bulletins. You can email any one of our staff if you have more questions. And by all means, go to the Technical Safety BC website. It's a great resource for just a number of conditions. So thanks so much, Michael. Thanks for your time. This was super.
Hey, no problem. And just going to throw it out there to plug this as well that, if they have any direct questions that, they can't find on our website, they can call into our toll-free number at 1-866-566-7233. It'll be on our website too. So don't run for the pen. And yeah, they can put you, our contact center will put you directly in contact with your local safety officer if you have more specific questions for them on these things.
And I can vouch for the fact that you get a pretty quick response and it is complete. You get great service. So thanks so much.
Hey, no problem.
Great.
Everybody have a good day.
Thanks, you too. Bye for now.
Bye.